ലോകജാലകത്തിലൂടെ നമ്മുടെ ജീവിത പങ്കാളിയെ കണ്ടെത്താൻ
വേൾഡ് മാട്രിമോണി.
Your Principles of Management Survivor's Guide. Learning objectives. Number 1. Know your learning style. Number 2. Know how to match your style to the circumstances. Number 3. Use the guide Discover Reflect framework. Principle of Management courses typically combine knowledge about skill and the development and application of those skills themselves. For this reason, it is helpful for you to develop your own strategy for learning about and developing management skills. The first part of this strategy should be based on your own disposition toward learning. The second part of this strategy should follow some form of the Gwidge Discover Reflect process that we outline at the end of this section. Assess your learning style. You can assess your learning style in a number of ways. At the very general level, you can assess your style intuitively. See what is your institution about your learning style. However, we suggest that you use a survey instrument like the Learning Style Index, LSI, the output from which you can then readily compare with your institution. In this section, we discuss the dimensions of the LSI that you can complete easily and quickly online. The survey will reveal whether your learning style is active or reflective, sensory or intuitive, visual or verbal, is sequential or global. What is your institution about your learning style? Your learning style may be defined in large part by the answer to 4 questions. Number 1. How do you prefer to process information actively through engagement in physical activity or discussion, or reflective through introspection? Number 2. What type of information do you preferentially perceive: sensory, external, sight, sound, physical, sensation, or intuitive, internal possibilities, insight, hunches? Number 3. Truth which sensory channel is external information most effectively perceived: visual picture, diagrams, graphs, demonstration, or verbal words, sounds. Other sensory channel like touch, taste, and smell are relatively untapped in most educational environments and are not considered here. Number 4. How do you progress toward understanding sequentially in continual step, or globally in large jump, holistically? Active and reflective learning. Everybody is active sometimes and reflective sometimes. Your preference for one category or the other may be strong, moderate, or mild. A balance of two is desirable. If you always act before reflecting, can jump into things prematurely and get into trouble. While if you spend too much time reflecting, you may never get anything done. Let's try it out and see how it works. Is an active learner phrase. Let's think it is truth first. Is the reflective learner's response. If you are an active learner, you tend to retain and understand information by doing something active with it, discussing it, applying it, or explaining it to others. Reflective learners prefer to think about it quietly first. Sitting through lectures without getting to do anything physical but take notes is hard for both learning types, but particularly hard for active learners. Active learners tend to enjoy group work more than reflective learners who prefer working alone. Sensing and intuitive learners. Everybody is sensing sometimes and intuitive sometimes. Here too, your preference for one or the other may be strong, moderate, or mild. To be effective as a learner and problem solver, you need to be able to function both ways. If you overemphasize institution, you may miss important details or make careless mistake in calculation or hand-on work. If you overemphasize sensing, you may rely too much on memorization, and familiar methods is not concentrate enough on understanding and innovative thinking. Even you need both. Which one best? Reflection. You sensor open, like solving problems by well established methods, and dislike complication and surprises instructors like innovation and dislike repetition, censors are more likely than instructors to resent being tested on material that has not been explicitly covered in class. Sensing learners tend to like learning packs. Intuitive learning often prefer discovering possibility and relationship. Sensors tend to be patient with details and good at memorizing fact and doing hands-on laboratory work. Instructors may be better at grasping new concepts and are often more comfortable than sensor with abstraction and mathematically formulation. Sensors tend to be more practical and careful than instructors. Instructors tend to work faster and to be more innovative than sensor. Sensors don't like courses that have no apparent connection to the real world, so if you are sensor, you should love principle of management. Instructors don't like flag and chug. Courses that involve a lot of memorization and routine calculation. Visual and verbal learners in most college classes very little visual information as pretended students mainly listen to lecture and read material written on whiteboards in textbook and on hands-out. Unfortunately, most of us are visual learners, which means that we typically do not absorb nearly as much information as we would if more visual presentation with use in class. Effectively, learners are capable of processing information presented either visually or verbally. Visual learners remember best what they see: pictures, diagrams, flow charts, timelines, films, and demonstration. Verbal learners get more out of words written and spoken. Explanation: everyone learns more when information is presented both visually and verbally. Sequential and global learners. Sequential learners tend to follow logical stepwise path in finding solution. Global learners may be able to solve complex problems quickly or put things together in novel ways. One they have grasped that big picture, but they may have difficulty explaining how they did it. Sequential learners tend to gain understanding in linear steps, with each step following logically from the previous one. Global learners tend to learn in large jumps, absorbing materials almost randomly without seeing connection and then suddenly getting it. Many people who read this description may conclude incorrectly that they are global since everyone has experienced bewilderment followed by a sudden flash of understanding. What makes you global or not is what happened before the light bulb goes on. Sequential learner may not fully understand the material, but they can nevertheless do something with it, like solve the homework problem or pass the test. Since the pieces they have absorbed are logical connected, strong global learners who lack good sequential thinking abilities, however, may have serious difficulties until they have the big picture. Even after they have it, they may be fuzzy about the details of the subjects. While sequential learner may know a lot about specific aspect of a subject but may have trouble relation them to different aspect of the same of subject or different subject. Adapt your style. Okay, so you've assessed your learning style. What should you do now? You can apply this valuable and important for information about yourself to how you approach your principles of management course and the larger POLC framework. Active learners, if you act before you think, you are apt to make hasty and potentially ill-informed judgment. You need to concentrate on summarizing situation and taking time to sit by yourself to digest information you have been given before jumping in and discussing it with others. If you are an active learner in a class that allows little or no class time for discussion of problem solving activities, you should try to compensate for these lacks when you study. Study in the group in which the members take turns explaining different topics to one another, working with others to guess what you will be asked on the next test, and figure out how you will answer. You will always retain information between if you find way to do something with it. Reflective learners. If you think too much, you risk doing nothing ever. There comes a time when a decision has to be made or an action taken. Involve yourself in a group decision making whenever possible and try to apply the information you have in as practical a manner as possible. If you are a reflective learner in a class that allows little or no class time for thinking about new information, you should try to compensate for this lack when you study. Don't simply read or memorize the material. Stop periodically to review what you have read and to think for possible question or application. You might find it helpful to write short summaries of readings or class notes in your own words. Doing so may take extra time but will enable you to retain the material more effectively. Sensory learners. If you rely too much on sensing, you tend to prepare what is familiar and concentrate on facts you know. Instead of being innovative and adapting to new situations, seek out opportunities to learn theoretical information and then bring in facts to support or negate these theories. Sensor reminder and understand information best if they can see how it's connect the real world. If you are in a class where most of the material is abstract and theoretical, you may have difficulty as you instructor for a specific sample of concept and procedures and find out how the concept apply in practice. If the teacher does not provide enough specific, try to find some in your course text or other references or by brainstorming with friends or classmates. Intuitive learners. If you rely too much on intuition, you risk missing important details, which can lead to poor decision making and problem solving. Force yourself to learn facts or memorize data that will help you defend or criticize a theory or procedure you are working with. You may need to slow down and look at detail you would otherwise typically skim. Many college lecture classes are aimed at instructors. However, if you are in instructors and you happen to be in a class that deals primarily with memorization and root substitution in formulas, you may have trouble with boredom as your instructor for interpretations or theories that link the facts or try to find the connection yourself. You may also be prone to careless mistake on tests because you are impatient with details and don't like repetition. As in checking your completed solution, take time to read the entire question before you start answering and be assured that to check your result. Visual learners. If you concentrate more on pictorial or graphical information than on words, you put yourself at a distinct disadvantage because verbal and written information is still the main preferred choice for delivery of information. Practice your note taking and seek out opportunities to explain information to others using words. If you are a visual learner, try to find diagrams, sketches, schematics, photographs, flowcharts, or any other visual representation of course materials that is predominantly verbal. As your instructor, consult reference books and see whether any videos, tapes, or CD-ROM display of the course materials are available. Prepare a concept map by listening key points, enclosing them in boxes or circles, and drawing lines with arrows between concept to show connection. Color code your notes with a highlighter so that everything relating to one topic is the same color. Verbal learners, as with visual learners, look for opportunities to learn through audiovisual presentation, such as CD-ROM and webcasts. When making notes, group information according to concept and then create visual link with arrows going to and from them. Take every opportunity you can to create charts, tables, and diagrams. Write, summarize, or outlines of course material in your own words. Working in groups can be particularly effective. You gain understanding of material by hearing classmates' explanation, and you learn even more when you do the explaining. Sequential learners. When you break things down into small components, you are often able to dive right into problem solving. This seems to be advantageous but can often be unproductive. Force yourself to slow down and understand why you are doing something and how it is connected to the overall purpose of objectives. Ask yourself how your actions are going to help you in the long run. If you can't think of a practical application for what are you doing, then stop and do some more big pictures. Thinking most college courses are taught in sequential manner. However, if you are a sequential learner and you have an instructor who jump around from topic to topic or skip step, you may have difficulty following and remembering as the instructor to fill in the skip step or fill them in yourself by consulting references. When you're studying, take the time to outline the lecture material for yourself in logical order. In the long run, doing is will save you time. You might also try to strengthen your global thinking skills by relating each new topic you study to things you already know. The more you can do so, the deeper your understanding of the topic is like to be. Global learners. If grasping the big picture is easy for you, then you can be at risk of wanting to run before you can talk. You see what is needed but may not take the time to learn how best to accomplish it. Take the time to ask for explanation and force yourself to complete all problem solving steps before coming to conclusion or making a decision. If you done and why, then you may have missed critical details. If you are a global learner, it can be helpful for you to realize that you need the big picture of subject before you can master details. If your instructor flunks just directly into new topics without bothering to explain how they relate to what you already know, it can use problem for you. Fortunately, that there are steps you can take that may help you get the big picture more rapidly. Before you begin to study the first section of a chapter in a text, skim through the entire chapter to get an overview. Doing so may be time consuming initially, but it may save you from going over and over individual parts later. Instead of spending short time on every subject every night, you might find it more productive. Immerse yourself in individual subject for large blocks. Try to relate the subject things you already know, either by asking the instructor to help you see connection or by consulting reference above all. Don't lose faith in yourself. You will eventually understand the new materials and understanding how it connects to our topics and discipline may enable you to apply it in ways the most sequential thinkers would never dream of.